when I was getting you on the show, going through the booking process, you messaged me and said that things have been a bit wild for you over the past few years. It's been a wild ride for you. Now, you are 2 years younger than me. You're 24. You went to Penn State. You're from upstate New York like me. You went to Penn State after your pandemic graduation in 2020. You went down to Savannah, Georgia, and that's kind of where your story starts. So take me back to May 2020. What is Jamie Burton thinking?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I was just trying to live it up senior year at Penn State. I mean, I was so excited to do 50 days at our favorite bar, P-Man's, everything. Went to Cancun, had a blast. And while we were in Cancun, we're like, oh, wow, this thing called the coronavirus is going around. This is really weird. We thought we were getting sent back home, for me, upstate New York, for 3 weeks. And eventually it just turned into the rest of the semester. And next thing I knew, I was moving in with my parents for the next 5 months. So it was an intense time, to say the least.
What were those 5 months like for you?
It felt like Groundhog's Day. I mean, everybody said that, but it just really, I found myself getting drunk in my childhood bedroom on Zoom with all of my college friends. That's literally what we did every single night. And trying to do classes over Zoom and everything. I was going on walks around my neighborhood aimlessly for hours, really got into podcasting, also listening to podcasts at the time. But yeah, it was insane. And I was really ready to get out. Love my parents. They have been amazing. They're always amazing. But yeah, that was a really big transition. One of many.
And so you eventually did make it out. You spent 5 months in good old Clifton Park, and then you made it down to Savannah, Georgia. What brought you there?
Yeah, so I studied broadcast journalism in school, and I, like a lot of broadcast journalism majors, my dream was to be the next Kathy Lee and Hoda on the Today Show. I was always into entertainment and performing, as you know. But yeah, I started applying to a lot of news reporter jobs, and it was really hard during COVID, just because not a lot of people were hiring. They didn't have the funds to. Times were crazy. So luckily, Savannah was ringing. And I remember during my interview, I'd never been to Savannah before, but I always knew that I wanted to live down south. It was just kind of, I had that itch to go. And they asked me during my interview, they're like, well, you've never been to Savannah, so how would you feel moving somewhere you've never been to? And I still believe this kind of statement that I said, but I said, I feel as if you don't push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're never going to grow as a person. So yeah, I got the job, and about a week or two later, I was driving my little Prius 17 hours down to Savannah. So it was crazy.
Were you scared at all?
I was nervous. I actually had one of my best friends, Alex Newsom, that you know from high school. She came down with me, which definitely gave me a little bit of comfortability at that point. But yeah, it was scary. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I have to say, I think I was more so excited than scared. Just kind of being home for months, I was ready for that change. And I've just always wanted to kind of be on my own. I was always looking forward to, getting into the field and really testing my abilities and seeing what I could do.
Now, what drew you to the broadcast journalism on air field?
Definitely came from doing musical theater growing up. Started singing, started performing when I was like 4 years old. And the way that for me, journalism and musical theater go hand in hand is that in musical theater, you put yourself in the shoes of someone else. You tell their story and you tell it as authentically as you can. And that's what you're doing as a journalist. When you get assigned a story every day, or when you're seeking out that story, you're telling it from someone else's perspective and what they're going through. It's not what you think about the situation. It's what they're actually enduring every single day. So those two kind of go hand in hand for me. And I just always thought it was really fun. I used to make home videos and home music videos, home movies, everything with my friends. So being in front of the camera didn't really scare me. And I love meeting new people. I think it's so exciting. I love bopping around and, introducing myself to people. So it was a good fit for me at the time.
So was that always what you had wanted to do growing up, even when you were singing in plays and singing in choir?
No, I wanted to go to school for musical theater.
Okay.
Really bad. And then it just kind of came to towards the end of high school. I think, honestly, watching a lot of the older kids auditioning for college, you know how intense it is. It's crazy. And not that I was scared by it, but I think also working with I was very fortunate to work with a lot of professional actors when I got old, or when I was younger. And kind of just following along with them on Facebook, always having to sublet their apartments and pick up these side gigs, which is totally fine. And some people really love that spontaneous lifestyle and everything. But for me, I need a little bit more security in my life.
Yeah.
And, it just kind of hit me one morning of senior year before we really started applying to schools. I grew up watching Kathy Lee and Hoda with my mom, and I loved how they were interviewing people and getting to know new people, telling their stories and everything along those lines. And that's just kind of how it fell into place for me at the end of the day.
So you mentioned that was what you wanted to do, being on air, reporting the news, telling other people's stories, but you don't want to be doing that anymore. Why not?
No, I don't. I mean, I have the utmost respect for anyone in the news industry, whether it is the producers, the reporters, the anchors, the photogs, everyone under the sun. It takes a village to put on each and every newscast, whether it's every half hour, every hour. It was a really hard year to come into journalism. I mean, getting thrown in the midst of COVID was crazy. Obviously, Georgia was huge in the last election that we had. It was a lot, and it was not a lifestyle that's for me. As I mentioned, I'm a very secure, stable person. I work well when I'm organized, and that is not the news. I mean, for some people, they're like, oh, breaking news. This is awesome. I mean, we're getting a new story. We can do all this stuff. For me, that was my nightmare. It was because I'd work all day on a project, and then at the last second, it would be something completely new.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, at the end of the day, I'm very far away from this, but I do want to have a family. I want to have kids and raise my kids. And the news lifestyle is a really hard lifestyle to do that with a family, because you're on call all the time and you don't really get holidays off. You don't get weekends off. So it's
I understand that. I saw a lot of that when I was at ESPN. I missed Thanksgivings. Or my Thanksgiving was me on Thanksgiving morning, working until 7 a.m. Thanksgiving morning, and then sleeping until 10 a.m. and then driving home to meet my family, which is just a miserable existence. And it's things like that all over the place. So I get that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, my first year of reporting, I couldn't go home for Christmas, and being in Savannah and being from upstate New York, I couldn't get home. It was too far. And, having to just do all that and be away from family, it honestly, my mental well-being was really not okay. Yeah. I was in the job for about 10 months, and I was like, you know what? I need to put myself first and realize that this is not serving me. This is not who I want to be. This is not Jamie that I know. I'm a glasses half full type of person. And I left.
Yeah. You just became a different person in that time, right? I mean, you're on edge all the time. You're anxious. And again, it's, especially given the news climate that you were in, I imagine that was a very tough lifestyle for you, especially, and I am this exact way too, and I get the sense that you are. I am not very, very flexible. I like having a set schedule. I like knowing when I wake up what I'm going to be doing at 8 p.m. I kind of plan out my day to a T. You cannot do that when you were doing what you were doing.
Oh my gosh, no. And I was, my schedule was Wednesday through Sunday, 2 p.m. to 11 p.m., Wednesday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday, Sunday. So especially,
no consistency.
No. And it was crazy. I mean, I wouldn't start working until 2 p.m., but I really started working at 10 a.m. because our stories had to be in by noon. And it's a lot harder than you think, finding stories. It really, really is. And, then you got to get the sources for them, set up the interviews. And I was, I think a lot of people also, which is, I think, kind of fun to learn about news also, is that everybody thinks that everybody has a photog or a photographer going around with them. And we just stand there and try to look pretty and talk on camera. Oh, no. I did everything myself, from finding the story, setting up the interviews. I filmed the interviews. I edited everything. I wrote the scripts. You also write what the anchor says. So not only what you're saying, but what the anchor is saying. Wow. I have to get those scripts approved. I have to do my own audio, everything. And I had to do 3 stories a day and then get ready to go live at 10 o'clock at night by myself. I had no photog. So, checking the iris, doing the Zoom, setting up your lighting, everything, getting ready to go live. I mean, it was a lot. It taught me so much. But
and how much time did you actually have on air when you did your newscast?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it was an hour-long show in total. I was me actually talking on air was maybe for a total of 3 minutes. I'm not even kidding. Yeah. I mean, you heard my voice for longer than that when like a package would be rolling or different things like that. But I mean, you're not on it really for that long. And it was crazy. I mean, talk about time management. Whew,
Yeah.
I got real good at that. It taught
Yeah.
me so much, but it was too much. And some of my best friends are still reporters, and they live for that craziness every single day. And I was like, nope, I'm good. My anxiety, I cannot do this anymore.
That's a really underappreciated aspect of what you were doing and what other people who have that same job do, is that you spend all day, and a lot of people, because this is just how it is in local TV, they don't have the budgets to hire all of the people to do the jobs that you just laid out. So it's all down to the multimedia journalists like yourself to do all those things. And you spend all day doing those things for 3 minutes of talking.
Literally. And it's just, oh my gosh, it's crazy. And everybody, it would be more discouraging. Not always, but usually I would get really positive feedback about my stories. But there's always like one or two people that need to be a negative Nelly. And I'm like, hey, you don't realize how much effort got put into this. I'm telling you, if I had $1 for every single time, because I'd carry around my tripod, I'd have my backpack with all my mics in it, I'd be carrying my camera, literally everything. And people would be like, that camera's bigger than you. If I had $1 for everybody, every time someone told me that, I could pay off my student loans literally at this moment.
Yeah.
Insane.
I believe it. When you made the decision to walk away from that job after 10 months, a job that you had just spent several years training for at Penn State, and I don't even want to imagine how many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to do so. How did the people in your life take your decision?
At first, I would say that not that they didn't support me, but it was definitely like, Jamie, this is your first job out of college. Come on. Like, it can't be that bad. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. But I think genuinely, when I was calling my parents every morning, hysterically crying, and, I had always kind of gotten stressed out. Everybody experiences stress at one point or another, but I was experiencing severe anxiety that I had never felt before. And it really wasn't until my mom came to visit me for New Year's Eve that she got to watch everything that I was doing. My sweet mother came down to Savannah to celebrate New Year's Eve with me because I had to work. And she was like, wow, you're really doing a lot. And a lot of things were happening with scheduling for me too, which is very common in the news, but I was constantly working 6-7 day work weeks. One time it was an 11-day work week, and that was the norm. And I really had to learn to find my own voice and speak up for myself and just be like, hey, I can't do this mentally, physically. I can't do this. And this is also just not cool.
Yeah.
This is not sustainable for anyone in this industry or really anybody in this world. So they, after a little while, they were just like, you know what, if this really is killing you that much, you need to do what's best for you and you need to walk away.
Two things on that, and I'm glad they said that first. Let me tell you my New Year's Eve story. So New Year's Eve is my birthday also.
Oh my gosh.
And so my first year at ESPN, which was the worst year at ESPN for me because of that just wake up call of me working overnights, weekends. Do I want to be doing this? I hate what I'm working on, nights, weekends, holidays, all that stuff. So on my birthday, New Year's Eve, I was supposed to get out at 3 a.m. Luckily, I switched with someone who would get me out at 11:30 p.m. so I could watch the ball drop and celebrate some of my birthday not at work. My parents drove from upstate New York to Connecticut, 2.5 hours, to pick me up from ESPN at 11:50 and sit with me in the guest parking lot to listen to the ball drop on Sirius XM radio.
Oh my gosh.
That's the kind of lifestyle it is that
it really is.
About.
It's a grind.
Yeah.
It's a grind.
Secondly, speaking of your parents, my parents, because I had the same conversations with them, I would call them complaining about my life and the trajectory of my life, and they would say, just stick it out. You're the low man on the totem pole. This is what you want. This is what you wanted to do. Everyone has to do this. It'll be over soon. Don't be soft. Like, don't be one of those millennials who are just crying about everything. Like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get to work. Work. Like, in life, you just have to work and you're not always going to like it. Whereas someone like you and many other people in our generation, which I call the found generation, say, no, that's not what we want to do. We want to take great pride in what we do. We want to love what we do. We want to get paid for what we do. And we want to have our schedules and our jobs and responsibilities be more tailored to what we want out of our careers than what our companies want out of us. We don't want to just be another cog in the corporate wheel. We want to have more agency over what we're doing and all that stuff.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. And I feel like it's so easy to like say, oh, it's not that hard. You can get through it. You need to work hard, you know, because we're always told about how many years our grandparents spent at companies and you just need to work through it. But I think something that I really admire also about our generation is that we're not putting up with the BS.
Yes.
You know, like me as a person, I love to work hard. I mean, you know me, I was grinding in high school, like was involved in everything under the sun, was still involved in different things at Penn State and set goals for myself while being in college. But I like to work hard. I like to be busy. That is not why I couldn't handle that job. It just was not for me at the end of the day. And sorry, I want to be valued as an employee. And that's not where I was feeling it. And that's not where I'm going to put my time and effort to if I don't feel as if I'm growing as a human being or in my career.
Kudos to you for recognizing that. So after leaving Fox, where did you go?
So now I work at Connect Savannah. We are a local print newspaper. It comes out weekly for the past 20 years, but we are known as the news, arts, entertainment paper of Savannah. It's really fun. We host a lot of events. I originally started there doing graphic design, actually, because contract things with the news station, they were telling me I couldn't work there, whatever. So so I originally was doing graphic design, which I have never done that before, but I was like, I want out of this industry so badly. And I just want to get into a new job. I spent so many hours on YouTube learning how to use InDesign and all these different things. So I did that for a few months. And then they finally moved me into the MMJ position at Connect, which was more so journalism, where I was still writing stories, doing that, but also running social media, kind of helping plan events. I've done every job there because now I'm in a sales position. So I sell print and digital advertising at Connect now, and I've been there for a little bit over a year. Yeah.
So are you much happier in this role now? I mean, you're also a multimedia journalist there, which is what you were at Fox, but is this a better situation for you?
100%. I mean, I had never wanted to work a 9 to 5 so badly in my entire life. That consistency and that schedule for me works so much better. My boss is amazing. I can really talk to her about anything. And I knew that from day one with my interview. We're a very small office. We're an office of about 9 people. So talk about it being your family. They know the breakups I've gone through, just everything. They know everything under the sun about me. And, you know, it's really great to feel like that going in there. And they give us a lot of opportunities where I was telling you a little bit before that Lauren and I originally, who is my co-host of the Chicks and Dip podcast, we originally started a podcast at Connect Savannah. So we have a little bit of background doing that now. She also, funny enough, started at a news station here in Savannah as well. Got out of it for the same reasons that I did. A few months before I did, and I actually slid into her DMs quite literally and like, hey, how did you get out of the news? Because I need to know exactly what you did. And we got lunch and literally just became best friends. So we work at Connect together now, started that new podcast. But we've kind of shifted gears now. It was called What Are We Doing? So it kind of gave the rundown of what was going on in Savannah, everything like that. And it was really fun. We've gained an audience from it. Savannah's definitely become more of my home because I know a lot more people now than I did in the news, which is kind of crazy because you're meeting people every day. But yeah, I mean, that account is going to stay as more of a video segment account, but we are actually starting our own podcast as we've been talking about. So that's the newest adventure.
Okay. So what was the motivation behind you and Lauren starting Chicks and Dip?
You know, the biggest thing, honestly, is that we did not have time to do the old podcast. We would do it during the week at work. And, you know, the podcast wasn't our full-time job. We're full-time sales reps. So we have a sales goal to meet. And sometimes print advertising can be really hard to sell. Some people don't believe in it. Other people do. Some other people want to get on a digital contract, you know, so you kind of got to pick and choose who your clientele is, I guess. But we just didn't have time. We would spend all Tuesdays recording it in the morning, and then I would go back and edit it. And it just was a lot at the end of the day. And I think we just also wanted some more freedom with it. We wanted to be able to talk about what we want to talk about. And that's exactly what we're doing on this new podcast.
So what are you guys going to be talking about?
So pretty much the whole idea of it is that I'm 24, Lauren's 25. And I feel like this age is not that it's such a hard age, but more so it's a confusing age because you're graduated from college. You feel like you should have everything together and you should be on that career path. But especially for Lauren and I, ours have already changed being 2-3 years out of college. And we're just kind of accepting that, hey, we don't have it all figured out. And that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about what we've experienced, whether it's jobs, relationships, moving, anything really under the sun, and bringing people on to answer the questions that we can't answer ourselves because we haven't gotten that far in life yet.
Yeah, I love that because, and this is kind of the last few years in all my podcasts and writing and just reading I do, it's kind of on this subject matter because, and the book I'm reading right now, which was recommended to me by Anna Botino, if you remember her.
Oh, yeah.
The Defining Decade, several people have recommended it to me. I'm only a quarter of the way through it, but one of the premises I've read so far is that our generation currently, and some of the generation preceding us, this is really the first time where we've kind of had a gap in our 20s, a gap for wandering, because our parents were just kind of shepherded into your 20s or, okay, like, it's time for you to get married. Like, there was never really this 10-year buffer window between college and getting married like there is now. So there's never really been before in the history of time this window where it's like, all right, what do I do now? We are wandering. There's this German word, it's called like Wanderarsch or something. It's kind of this wandering period that all of us are going through. And it's kind of what I love about our 20s is just kind of floating about from thing to thing, uninhibited. I don't have to worry about a family. I don't have a dog. I don't have any kids or wife or anything, because I can just kind of go do what I want when I want and figure out what I want down the road. And that's what I love so much about it. But on the flip side, a lot of confusion. Am I where I should be in my life? Am I doing what I've always wanted to do? Does this fulfill me? Am I hanging out with the right people? All sorts of existential questions that I think that you and I probably have this in common, as well as many other people as well. Just constantly running the hamster wheel in your head, asking yourself the questions if you're doing the right things.
Oh my gosh, I keep myself up at night because my brain never shuts off. I mean, I swear. But no, I totally relate to that completely because especially when the news career didn't work out, I'm really close with one of my professors at Penn State, and he had the most faith in me. And he's like, you're going to go far in this, just stick it out in your first market, because they always say your first market is the hardest. But
Right.
I don't know. When I ended up, I was so scared to tell him. I did not want to let him down. I didn't want to let other people down. My family was so proud of me. And my mom always said, she's like, you would never be able to tell how much you hated it because you were so good at it.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that was the biggest thing for me. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, if it is not serving you, don't do it. Don't do it. And when I did tell my professor, he was just like, you know what? You need to trust your gut. And that is just what I have learned, honestly. And that's my biggest piece of advice for people is trust your gut. If you don't feel like it's right, don't do it. You got to change things. You got to listen to yourself because you are your best judgment of things. I'm telling you.
So what are the biggest things right now that you personally are stressing out about?
Oh gosh, that I'm stressing out about?
Yeah, that are giving you
Lord.
anxiety in your life as you are getting ready to embark on a journey of kind of talking about things that stress out young people. I mean, I imagine you're worried about some things yourself.
You know, funny enough, I was just talking to Erica Lang is our producer of the podcast. We were just talking about this today. Funny enough, starting this podcast, I mean, I really feel like we're taking a plunge. I mean, think of how many, you know, even with you, with how many podcasts are out there, it's like, how am I going to make myself different than everybody else out there? And getting on every social media platform and finding your audience and doing everything. And as scary as it may be, I am so excited. I am so excited to have something that is mine, but there's definitely a bit of stress with it too, because, you know, if it is something that really does blow up, I mean, that's going to be our full-time thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's also very much so putting yourself in the light of other people. Not everyone on the internet is the nicest human being. So it's just kind of learning that too. I think it's just a totally different realm that we know, but that we don't know at the same time. So really just kind of finding what's going to work best for us, who our audience is, and yeah, I mean, doing it the way that we want to and putting out the product that we want to put out. I don't want to like half do anything. I was going to say another word, but I was like, going to keep it PG on here.
So
but
media trained.
Yeah. So we just don't, I think that's the only thing that's a little stressful right now. I think is kind of getting everything together and making sure we have all of our ducks in a row and whatnot before we really kind of launch with this thing. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of, I think that, and just figuring out if this is where I'm going to go with everything, just with career paths changing. I didn't think it would happen this soon, I guess, is the craziest thing in my life right now.
What is the dream for the Chicks and Dip podcast? Where do you hope it goes?
Oh my gosh. We have so many dreams with it. We really want it to turn into a media company. So the media company is Three Chicks Media. So it will be Three Chicks Media present the Chicks and Dip podcast. So we really want to turn that into, with all of our skills put together, because Erica is also a journalist as well. So all of us have the background of video, photography, all these different things, writing stories, different things like that, social media, kind of hopefully being able to do that for other people, but also bringing other podcasts onto our network. Yeah. I think would be really cool. We would love to have, hey, maybe like your podcast one day could be really cool. Or
your people get in touch with my people.
Yeah, exactly. They'll be in touch. But yeah, I think just kind of growing it in that realm. Lauren and I love to listen to, have you ever heard of the Girls Gotta Eat podcast?
No, I've not.
Oh my gosh. I listen to that religiously every Monday morning, but they do like live shows and different things like that. We would love to do that. I would love for this to be my full-time gig. It would be so cool. We love creating content, and Lauren and I really bounce off of each other, and Erica is so amazing with what she does that I think we have a lot of potential, and we're all so excited about it.
Yeah. I'm so happy for you. I can see the way that you're talking about this. This is awesome. What do you find most fulfilling about creating content, putting stuff out into the world?
Because it's your mind, it's your creative like juices flowing in your head. And it's so cool to me how many different combinations of something there can be. I mean, even when you're on TikTok, a sound on TikTok can be used 100,000 different ways. Yeah. It's so cool sitting down with Lauren and Erica, who are so amazing with what they do. We all bounce off of each other, and it's like, oh, well, what if we do this? Oh, but we could do that. We can do this. And we just end up coming out with this product that is like our child at the end of the day. I mean, the promo video that we put out, every piece of that is something that each of us came up with. Like even the beginning, when it kind of does that like blank screen, like that was my idea. And we wanted it to be like a rough edit of us showing where we're going to be sitting for the podcast and then getting into everything. And I think that's the coolest thing, just how many possibilities there are when you like put your minds together,
And that's another one of my favorite things about this generation is that gone are the days of, you and I kind of follow this route, but you don't necessarily need to get a formal education in being on camera or journalistic standards or whatever. The best thing is that anyone can go become a content creator, make a legitimate living on YouTube, a legit living on TikTok or on your podcast. That is so empowering to me and so inspiring to me to know that it used to always be kind of a third party holds your life in their hands. And now, like you are doing with your company, you can do that.
It's so funny that you just said that, because it made me think of the news again, where I think something that's huge is changing within the industry are these content creators. Yeah. I mean, we are going to school to study journalism and to do all these things, but at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter if you have that degree. If you are a face that people like to look at and listen to and follow along with, I mean, they're going to hire you for the job. So exactly. I think as great as it is, I also think the downside to it are people like me that did study and that did put that time in to get that role. And so I was just like, you know what? I know that hard news is not what I want to do. I want to do more of the entertainment side of things. So you know what? I'm going to take a different route and I will figure it out at the end of the day. I am so just trying to go with the flow, which I am usually not like that, but that is how I'm just coasting right now.
Nice. I love that. Not that you asked, but something that I find very fulfilling about this is it takes me back, and I know you can relate to this, to that time in our lives when we used to perform. I mean, I think back to kind of why I do what I do is because I grew up performing, whether that was on the basketball court, on the baseball field, in musical theater, in choir. whether it was public speaking. I was the kid who loved to public speak.
Yep.
I just love putting stuff out there that came from my own mind, like you said, to be judged by people, whether it's appreciated and praised or criticized. Either way, I love the feedback, and that's where I thrive most. That's where I'm happiest, when I have that a good mixture of putting me out into the world for other people to consume.
Yeah. And I feel like you can relate to this as well, even from the passage that you read at the beginning of this, making someone feel something. I love that more than anything in the world, whether that's through musical theater, through telling someone's story, doing something like this, making someone feel something that maybe A, they've never felt before, B, something that they need to be feeling and are pushing it aside. And I think that's something that's so amazing with communication and these different avenues that we're going in and even with the podcast, with your podcast and the one that we're doing, I feel like people can listen to it. And when you hear someone else's personal story, it's like, wow, I've been through that too. Yeah. It is not just me. And I think that's what makes things so relatable and so successful at the end of the day, is just being brutally honest about some things that you've gone through.
Yeah. To go super inside to this business, I'm just kind of curious what your strategy, if you're willing to share, what your strategy will be like for growing the show, because your mind will immediately say, be on as many platforms as possible and do as much as you can with them, aka be on Insta, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, be everywhere you can and try to get the most eyes and ears on you. Problem is, it takes a lot of bandwidth to be able to do that and to do it well. So you really have to kind of pick and choose. So I'm wondering, do you think it's better to just try to splinter yourself as much as possible and be everywhere, or to just kind of own in on one thing? Hey, this is just going to be a podcast that we're going to put on Spotify and YouTube, and we're just going to make it as good as it can be in that lane.
I feel like it was funny when you said like Twitter and LinkedIn and stuff, like we're not on those different things, but I feel like you just need to, one thing that my editor at Connect Savannah has taught me is that you are not going to decide your brand. Your audience is going to decide your brand at the end of the day. And I think that is the biggest thing, whether you're starting a podcast or starting a business, those people that support you and that keep coming back to buy your product, to listen to your product, whatever it is, they're going to tell you what they like. And that's what you need to adjust to. That's what you need to be flexible with doing. And I think that's what we're trying to hone in on right now with the podcast. I don't think necessarily that we need to be on every single platform possible, but I think we are on TikTok just because we like it. We're on that because we like it. We're on Instagram because we like it. And, we probably won't put ourselves on LinkedIn or Twitter or different things just because that's not really the realm that we're in. I think Lauren is actually on Twitter. I personally don't really like Twitter, so I'm not on it.
Yeah.
But I think I think you don't want to spread yourself too thin at the end of the day. And I think honestly, even being on a few platforms, Instagram is night and day from TikTok. I mean, the content that's on there are two different audiences there too. So I think that's something in any business, you just need to learn what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for us right now, getting some episodes in and gaining those followers and everything. Not even just followers, just people that support you at the end of the day. I think just kind of honing in on that, if that makes sense. I'm not really sure if that did, but
You mentioned that, you're not really a big fan of LinkedIn, but I actually, in my research for preparing for you, pulled up your LinkedIn and went back to some old articles of yours from the Odyssey.
Oh my gosh. Lord.
I've got two quick excerpts here that I want to read for you. And I want to see, I just kind of want to get your thoughts on it. So going back to December 20th, 2017, you said this, quote,
scary.
It's always the worst going back to your old stuff, right?
I know. I'm like thinking about, okay. Oh God, I'm scared.
All right. Quote, I have learned that everyone is placed in your life for a reason. This reason is to either stay or to either teach you a lesson about life or even about yourself that you didn't know before then, and then they slowly fade out. Do you think that's still the case?
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree with myself from 2017. I definitely believe that. That is so funny. Is that, what is that called? I'm curious. Is that the one that I wrote about my high school boyfriend?
I don't know. You didn't reference your high school boyfriend in that. You kept it vague, but
I literally thought Max Vanderveer, you know him.
Yeah.
He's like one of my, love that kid to death.
He's the
But
man.
I remember, I thought you were going to bring up that one. I was like, oh God,
Well, I might next. You don't know. So.
Here we go. No, I totally believe that. I think, whether it's friends, whether it's relationships, I mean, as bad as it sounds, sometimes even family members, like as you just kind of get older, some people are supposed to stick in your life and are supposed to be there. But I think some people also are supposed to come in, teach you a lesson about either what you want in that relationship, what you don't want in that relationship, who you are as a person. And some people bring out bad sides of you.
Yeah.
And when you realize that, it's like, hey, I don't want to be around you or people like you because I don't like who I am with you.
Exactly.
And I think it's very important to notice that at the end of the day. If you don't feel like you're a legitimate person, then it's probably not good for you. But I definitely still agree with that. I am the biggest, I think time is so valuable, and I don't think you should spend time with people that are not adding something positive into your life.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. I also agree with you as well. Now, this is something that I would not have been on board with in 2017 when you wrote this. So kudos to you for being wise beyond your years. It took me a while to realize that because I would try to hold on to friendships or relationships that meant a lot to me at one point, but the other person wasn't giving as much as I was giving. And so I would try to hold on to it and bring that person back. And I would basically just be beating a dead horse and not accept that, hey, that relationship was great for your life at that point, but it doesn't make sense going forward. And that can be very hard for people to accept.
Definitely. And I think just kind of getting older, especially with friendships, this is a two-way relationship. I mean, the phone works both ways, and especially with social media now, it is so easy to get in touch with people and to keep up. And I think that can be a fault too, because it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I haven't talked to you in months on end. I feel like I know what you're doing. But you grow up, honestly. Yeah. I mean, even from 2017, I am such a different woman than I was then. And even in high school, when you knew me, I mean, we got on this call and you're like, oh my God, you're like a grown human. This is insane. But I think it's okay to move on from people in relationships and to lose those friendships because it might just not be in the cards for you anymore. And sometimes it's more stressful to hold on to something that's not supposed to be there anymore.
All right. April 9th, 2018.
Oh, Lord.
I like this one. You have this constant mindset that whatever you do now is going to dramatically affect your future. You're constantly looking for a crystal ball to give you the answers to all of the questions you have, but can never seem to find it. But that's life. We are not supposed to have all of the answers. What do you think about that?
I literally said this last week to my friend Julia that I wish I had a crystal ball to know how things were going to work out. Yeah. Literally. In every aspect of my life, because that is just me. I'm such a planner, and that is something that I am completely working on. That is something that I need to work on to know that, hey, you're not going to know all the answers right now. And we're not supposed to know all the answers. That's how you grow. I mean, even me coming down to Savannah, I would never have known that this is where my life was going to go. Even now, even being here for 2 years in July, my life is completely different. Yeah. And you're not supposed to know. That's how you grow as a human being. You get put in these uncomfortable situations, in these hard situations, in these hurtful situations, and even really great situations to figure out how you're going to grow from it at the end of the day. So yeah, geez, I still agree with Jamie from 2018.
The uncertainty is hard to deal with. I also wish I had a crystal ball. I would like to know, am I going to still be doing this same job in 3 years? Where am I going to be? I have kind of this crisis every year because I work remotely. So I'm like, where am I going to live? Because I can literally live anywhere I want. So when you can live anywhere you want, how do you choose the right place? So I always second guess everything. But those were my favorite game to play is, Troy, if you had told yourself 2 years ago that you would be doing what you're doing now, what would you have thought? And every time I play that game, what comes out of my mouth is crazy because I remember I was having a conversation with my best friend, Ben Simpson, in February of 2020. We're in a taxi in Boston, And I say to him, like, how crazy my life has been the last 2 years. I work at ESPN. I'm in Boston with you. You go to Harvard now and you study biology, and we just had a great night out. And then I think 2 years later, pandemic. I left ESPN. I now live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I work for Spotify on Mixed Martial Arts podcast. What has my life become? I never anticipated any of this, but that is the beautiful thing about life. Is you never know where it's going to take you.
I think it's so cool in ways too. I mean, when you were just saying all of that, it automatically made me think to summer 2019, my internship when I was at the Tonight Show. We were talking a little bit about that. I mean, when I was there that summer going into senior year at Penn State, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to move back here. I'm so excited. I just want to be back in 30 Rock. I just want to be swiping in every day and working at the Tonight Show or the Today Show, doing everything. And then the pandemic hit and everything changed.
Yeah.
Literally everything changed. I no longer wanted to live in New York City. I literally couldn't at the same time. And I went into the news world, which I did not think I was going to do. I thought I was going to go do the Page program at NBC. And it's so crazy. And now I can't even picture myself living in New York City. Like, no, I would not want to do that. And now I'm just so content. Like, I love here in Savannah. I love Charlotte, North Carolina, where my sister is. I love living down south. And it's so funny because all my old intern friends are like, when are you coming to the city? When are you going to move here? I'm like, probably never.
How did you go about making good friendships in Savannah in a totally unfamiliar place?
It was hard. It was really hard. I mean, that is something that they don't tell you after college.
Yeah.
When you move to a city, it's like, because in college, you're living with all of your best friends.
Yep.
And then you move to a city and it's like, oh my gosh, especially in Savannah, I don't feel like there's a lot of people my age here. I feel like a lot of people are older here, to be honest. And it was really hard, especially working weekends in the news at first. And all of my news friends jumped to a different market after a certain amount of time. So they're not always here. But honestly, Lauren has been an amazing help. She has helped introduce me to a bunch of people. She's a big socialite here in Savannah. And I'm definitely social too, but I really like my alone time sometimes. I'm an introvert, but I'm an extrovert at the same time.
Totally feel that.
Yeah. I mean, some nights I would really love, 2 Saturdays ago, I spent my night at Home Goods buying myself a rug, and then I sat here all night, and it was amazing. Other Saturdays, I'm going to go get drinks with friends and everything. It depends on the day. But yeah, I think it's hard. I honestly was on Bumble BFF for a little while to even meet some people, like some girlfriends and stuff, but I don't think I actually ever ended up meeting up with anyone. That's why I'm not even good on the dating apps, because I chicken out and don't want to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely hard, but I think just putting yourself out there, you got to go be social. As crazy and as tiring as it can be, I think you do need to put yourself in situations, or join a gym. I joined a yoga studio here, and I've met a lot of people that way. Get yourself involved in clubs. And growing up doing musical theater, get into some musical theater companies here, kind of pick different things, baseball or basketball for you. Go join a pickup league or something. Find the things that really make you happy, because people that appreciate that as much as you are going to be in that environment. And chances are you're probably going to get along with them. So that's what I would say is the biggest piece of advice to meeting people, but it's definitely not easy. I literally met new people last weekend. I'm like, what the heck? I've been here for 2 years. I've never met you before. How does this happen?
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for all that. I fully agree. A couple more quick hitters for you. So maybe I should have asked this earlier, but whatever. So being an on-air personality in Savannah, being a young, attractive woman on the air, I'm sure you and people, seeing you out in the street, oh, do you need someone to carry that for you because it weighs more than you? I'm sure you got a lot of weird comments, whether that was online or out in the streets. Like, what was that like dealing with that?
Oh my God, when you just said comments online, it just made me think of my Facebook page. And in those messages, it's like you're not friends with them on Facebook, but people message you anyways. Yeah. Oh my God, I have the weirdest DMs from people. And it's like, please stop. This is so strange. Yeah, I mean, the amount of time since I was going out at night by myself, the amount of drunk people that would come up to me. I mean, people party in Savannah. I've been a part of it. I am still a part of it. But it just, when you're trying to do your job, it's like, please walk away and have respect for me at the end of the day. This is my job. I don't bother you, and you're doing your job. And, the drunk people that would run in or try to like hit on you. And of course, my news car had the decal on it for which station I was with. All you got to do is go online and look for the reporters at Fox 28 and there I'd pop up,
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, people definitely were creepy and kind of weird, but at the same time, I think I've got a little bit of a New York attitude sometimes that people don't know how to handle. And I have no problem telling someone to get away from me if you're being an absolute creep, because at the end of the day, I just want to be respected, just like anybody wants to be respected, whether you're a man or a woman. You got to respect people's boundaries and what they're trying to do. And at the end of the day, I was just trying to be a reporter doing my job and I wanted to go home so badly. So.
Lastly, I'm sure the listeners are dying to know, how was your Tonight Show experience with Jimmy Fallon?
It was really cool. So during my Penn State experience, I was saying a little bit earlier that I always like to set goals for myself. One of my goals during college was to have a news, sports, and entertainment internship at some point. So news I did back home at News Channel 10.
I also interned there. I saw that.
You did?
Yeah,
oh
with Liana.
Gosh. Yes, I know. I really wanted to work there after school, but of course, COVID was very crazy. So I did that internship. I interned with Penn State Athletics, which was wild. I mean, doing replay for hockey was the craziest time of my life. Talk about being stressed. It was crazy doing graphics and all that stuff, but you learn so many things. And I always wanted to be an intern for Jimmy Fallon. Like he went to St. Rose for a hot minute. He didn't end up finishing his time. For those people listening, it's near Clifton Park where we grew up. And I was like, oh my God, it'd be so cool to be his intern. It is so cool how he has just followed his dreams and done whatever. So I was actually at a Penn State alumni dinner. And one thing I will credit to myself is that I'm very good at networking for sure. And we were at dinner and it just happened to be that the girl across from me was talking to someone else about working at the Tonight Show. And I was like, I am so sorry. I'm not trying to interrupt, but you work at the Tonight Show. I need to hear everything about this. Wasn't even like asking her to be like, hey, give me the plug in here. Like I need to be there. But regardless, after we had met all the alumni, I emailed all 20 of them with my resume, cover letter, and a letter of recommendation, and was like, hey, I'm looking for an internship this summer. I don't know how much you can help, but I would greatly appreciate any guidance that you can give me. She was one of the few people to respond to me, and she was like, hey, I don't really know how much I can help, but I'll do the best that I can. And it was actually when I was studying abroad that semester that I got an email asking for an interview. And I ended up getting the internship, and it was insane. 5,000 people applied, and there were 20 of us. And of course I was there with like Harvard and Duke and, all the LA kids and whatnot. So being the Penn Stater, they're like, oh, you Penn? I'm like, no, Penn State, even better. But it was crazy. I mean, it was so surreal to swipe into 30 Rock every day. And I still don't feel like I understand the magnitude of that. We did a lot of running around, that's for sure, doing what interns do, but getting to see how all the pieces of the show that come together every single day. And it's a grind. I have so much respect for everybody that works there. I do have a cool story from my internship there,
please,
which is my like fun fact. So every day someone would get chosen as the studio intern, which means that you go in and you watch sound check for the musical guests that day. Jimmy will come in and rehearse his little skits. And then when the actual talent comes in that day, they'll do their stuff. So I kid you not, it was probably 20 minutes before the live audience was supposed to come in, and Madonna was the guest that day. And they were doing one of those things where you turn off the lights and you look like a stick figure and you're kind of like jumping around and stuff like that. So Madonna was running late, and the stagehand came up to me so seriously, because I was a stage intern that day, or the studio intern rather. And she was like, if I ask you to do this dance off with Jimmy, I need you to be so serious about it. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. So literally Madonna was like in her dressing room. This is getting broadcasted on all of the TVs throughout the office. So everybody's watching this, including Madonna. And I got announced as Madonna, and Jimmy was like, okay, and here we go, Madonna. So like I came out, he like dabbed me up and everything. And he had his Australian choreographer like telling him what to do. But we literally did a dance off. Like the Roots played like an 8 count or a 16 count, something like that. You made up your own dances. I had like Madonna brought a team of 60 people that were sitting in the audience
Wow.
watching this. It was insane. And at the end, we had to do a little like dance together. And we were about to move around. And then he was like, okay, I'm just going to pull you through my legs. So go with it. And I was like, what are we doing? And literally like, he just pulled me through his legs and we were all dancing. And it was insane. It was the coolest. And that brought everything full circle for me, that I was just like, wow, this is so cool that I just got to do that. Yeah.
And it's been all
insane.
downhill since.
It's been all downhill since. But yeah, I mean, we got to have a dance off with Jimmy Fallon, so it worked. And I actually have a note on my phone. That's my goals list. And one of my goals is within the next 10 years to be interviewed or to interview Jimmy Fallon myself.
Well, I think, Jamie, you are well on your way with Three Chicks Media, the Chicks and Dip podcast, now available on all the places. First episode is out this week. Jamie, thank you so much for joining me, for your honesty, for your openness. You are killing it. I'm so proud of you. You know, like I said, I don't even recognize you. You're so mature. You're a grown human, wise beyond your years. Thank you so much for joining me, and good luck with everything that you've got going on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.